Fiesole today is a small, absolutely lovely village which dominates the whole valley of Florence. The views over Florence are stunning. The FFAST collection does run a small navette from the center of Fiesole to the villa, so it is now open to the public. Behind me is, of course, the Villa Peyron. This is a villa which has been left as a foundation. It's quite a large property. It's got probably 50 hectares and gardens, extremely beautiful gardens, olive groves, woods. There are some animals here, and the whole thing is a working agricultural property, and we are sitting here in the old farmhouse. This is called a casa colonica. Comes from the same root in Latin as a colony. It's a farmhouse. This wonderful old farmhouse is actually quite large and will, I hope, eventually become totally occupied by FFAST, the Fondazione Fremantle per Artisti Stranieri in Toscana, or in English, the Fremantle Collection of Foreign Artists who have worked here in Tuscany in the 20th and 21st century. The farmhouse, for the moment, we occupy the top floor. And eventually we hope to use this terrace, for example, for sculptures. There's a wonderful courtyard down here we would use also for sculptures. This idea for a collection of foreign artists who worked in Tuscany came about at the time of the millennium. I've lived many years in Florence, and it occurred to me that we should have a big show in Florence dedicated to foreigners who worked in the 20th century in Tuscany. And that would, of course, include everybody from John Singer Sargent to Henry Moore, to Jacques Lipschitz in the middle of the century, Harry Jackson, who still has a studio here, and eventually towards the end of the century, David Hockney, Keith Haring, so many people. There were problems with the city. They did give me a wonderful space to start that show, but whatever happened, it didn't come about. So it occurred to me only about 2 years ago that we could find a suitable place near Florence and have the same idea only permanently. That is, there would be a permanent collection, and I would start it with my own collection, or part of my own collection, and we would get artists to donate things. We would get funding from either public or private sources, and we would create a permanent collection of foreigners who worked in Tuscany, mostly, obviously, to begin with British and American, because they are predominant, but then every nationality. The idea is eventually to make a great tribute to Tuscany and a great tribute also to artists. The collection at the moment is about 50 artists, 60 artists, 160, 170 works, and we are making it grow, so to speak. That is, I have asked many artists who've lived here, and I'm in contact with many more in the next few weeks, to contribute, loan, give, whatever works for the collection. And of course, I'm also trying to find funding. It's very important that we find both public and private funding. I insist and I emphasize that this collection is about artists. It's not about labels. It's not about money or what works of art are worth. It's about artists who work here. But it's also an idea where eventually it will be a foundation for artists, to help artists. And for that, of course, we intend to function in various ways as a business. One is, of course, to rent out studios. Another is to have classes of various forms of art. We would like to have studios here for visiting teachers, visiting professors, visiting students, people who are engaged in art. We would like to provide them with a space and this wonderful property to work in. We would also like to have classes of contemporary art here. Florence and Fiesole are full of old art. You couldn't get more art per square meter in the world probably than you can get right here in this valley. But what would be interesting is to have courses on contemporary art, because it is put aside a bit in this town. And there are many, many art schools, so that we can get people who actually teach contemporary art to come and talk and to give classes. There are many universities here, New York University, Syracuse University, Middlebury, so many universities. We would like to have classes for students who are interested in contemporary art to see contemporary art being made here, and in studios here. We would take people around to artist studios and actually relate the collection to art being made today. If anybody, for instance, has any way of helping us, we're open to every sort of idea. We don't need just funding, we need art. If anybody has work by foreigners who worked in Tuscany that they don't need or they would like to loan us, we'd be very interested. If you know artists who have worked here, lots of people know of artists who have worked at one point or another in their lives in Tuscany, if you could put us in touch with them. This building is supposed to become eventually a kind of cultural center for contemporary art here in Tuscany. This is Tuscany. It's a wonderful place for artists, for art. It's full of inspiration, and with your help and the inspiration we can make an extraordinary project here.